And immediately back in with the airbrush. Why are you not doing this with a paintbrush? Why? What benefit is the airbrush giving you at this point, at this scale? Like, it's just maddening. Honestly, Trovarion, skill issue. Hello, everyone. If I sound funny, it's because I'm a bit poorly. I've got a bit of a dodgy throat at the moment. About this time every year, I get tonsillitis, so go figure, it's probably that. Anyway, I thought it'd probably be worth making a video about the latest video from Trovarion, or Trovarion, whatever his name is. Just because it's a Iron Warriors painting tutorial, as it were, which is always near and dear to my heart. And I think it's worth, because there are a lot of painting tutorials. You can pick any chapter in 40k. You can pick Ultramarines, Blood Angels, Imperial Fists, anything you like, and you will find tutorials online. And some of them are very good, and some of them are not very good. And some of them, like Trovarion, I mean, the guy is a Golden Daemon winner, consecutive winner. He has won multiple years. He's done a video where he's just gone over his collection. He has won many high-ranking, high-quality painting competitions, right? So when he comes out with a video about a quick way to paint Iron Warriors, naturally, I'm interested. But today, I want to look at Trovarion's video, so let's jump straight into this.
This video was supposed to be a straightforward paint job, but it turned into a really frustrating experience. The final result did turn out really great, but how I got there was not fun at all. So I primed the Mini black and applied a solid layer of dark aluminium. And then I gave it a wash of diluted contrast paint.
Straight away, painting it silver and then painting it blue.
The idea here is to give the metallics some color depth, and blue is really great for that initial steel look. As always, I'm directing the pigments to stay in areas that I want shaded, like the lower parts of the shoulders.
Like, we will get to the end of the video, this will be almost unnoticeable, this layer here of light blue wash that he's put on this. I do wonder why even bother, because the very next wash just completely obliterates this, just completely covers it, right? Like, if you're doing Iron Hands, if you're doing a Steel Warriors look, makes sense. These are the Iron Warriors. It's a very dark, heavy metal. It's not the shiny chrome of steel.
Lower parts of the chest and below the collar. Next, I added some burnt umber ink that I heavily thinned down with contrast medium. And this is some real magic for metallics. A double whammy if you want. Because not only does it...
Look how dark it looks after it's been applied. This is what gets me with these kind of painting videos. When they're putting the wash on, it looks one way, and then once it dries, it looks a completely different way. And Trovarion, I love you, but mate, how could this not just be applied by putting on Agrax Earthshade, right? Where is the blue that you literally put on? I can see the blue on his face, I can see it on all the not metal areas, but the actual metal of the armour, it's just gone brown. That's it. That is the only colour that's there now. It is silver and brown. So that whole, it doesn't matter that it only took like 30 seconds. It is invisible. It is gone.
Staying the metallics, and especially as it interacts with the blue, it creates an awesome shade. This mix also dulls down the metallics a lot, and this is what makes metallics look great in my opinion. Because what
color nuances? It's just brown on silver. I'm sorry, but like a tiny little patch on there doesn't magically transform this. It's the same.
Remember, that's the contrast I'm looking for with metallics. Dull versus shiny, and not just dark versus light.
And this is...
Eventually I switched to a medium-sized dry.
And to be fair, this is fine. Like, at this point, doing a hard metal base, give it a wash of brown, and then dry brush over with a brighter silver colour, that's perfectly fine. That's very standard. Using a sponge, using a makeup brush, using all these different tools, as it were, I get it. When you come from a competition background, it's kind of hard to just be like, right, I'm just going to use my standard large bristle brush to just done, right? But if you're doing like 20 of these in a unit, or 2 squads of 10, or a squad of 10, a squad of 5 Terminators, you want to get through them quickly. This is one of those videos where it's like, yes, I take 40 minutes to work on one guy. That's great if that was actually the case, but he will go in to explain just how difficult this has been for him, and it doesn't have to be that way at the end of the day. But yeah, up until this point, like, hard metal, brown wash, dry brush silver, perfectly fine. That's all standard. Like the stippling effect, it's fine.
Just to see if I can create a similar effect to the sponge. And I would say I like it even better because the resulting chips look even more random in size and shape, and I can focus properly on edges if I want to. The principle, however, stays the same. I want to achieve some controlled randomness, as that's what looks the most credible. So all of this has been a breeze so far. Really quick, and the result looks great. And I hear you say, where is the frustration that you promised me when I clicked on this video? And let me tell you, up to this point I was really happy because it took about 20 minutes and
Yeah, because you've done 3 things. Yes, this was very easy because you haven't really gotten into the hard part of painting Chaos Warriors yet.
I already saw the video title in front of me. This is how I painted an epic mini in under 40 minutes. But boy, was I gonna get hit by reality really hard here in a minute. I finished this step up by making some of the edges and higher up areas brighter by dabbing on.
Okay, this is the competition level painter trying to slow or trying to speed up what he would normally want to do if he was making something for a high level. Like picking out edges and so on with some very fine silver paint. No issues there at all. You can get some scratches in there at this point. But he's going to do this for everything. He's going to do this for all the armor panels. And it's like, mate, you don't have to do that. You just need to paint the model. You can skip this step.
White aluminium with a brush, covering less space than the layer before, that go over the metallics in the Iron Warrior schemes.
God, it's one of those things you only notice when you actually watch a video back. Look how bright the wash has settled in the cracks and all the little corners of that backpack. That is not a good look, mate. That is not good at all. You want to go back in with a black wash and just darken all those. Because the recesses are meant to be black in shadow. They're not meant to be dusty and bright, like beige colour. It looks dusty and old.
And I didn't want to just sponge metallic chips over layers of black and yellow paint. I knew I wanted to keep the work I put into these metallics because they look really awesome and have them shine through below the chipped off paint. So I used the so-called...
Okay, here we go. Here is the meat and potatoes of painting any Iron Warriors that drives everyone insane. It's hazard stripes, right? It's the black and yellow hazard stripes. It's any other war markings, any other colour over the shoulder pads. This is what drives everyone absolutely insane. Because unlike any other chapter, bar Iron Hands, you don't have to paint your model silver before you do anything else, right? You just paint it the primary colour, whether it's blue or red or yellow or green or whatever it is for you loyalists, and then you just sponge on some battle damage afterwards. With Iron Warriors, you tend to do all the silvers first, then you have to pick out certain areas to do in these bright colours, the yellows, the reds, if you're going for unit markings, and then you have to weather it over the top. He's going to try and do some chipping effects, and that sounds great, except the area you're trying to work with is, in some cases smaller than your thumbnail, right? It's a shoulder pad, it's a tiny area.
Hairspray technique.
This stuff is designed for use on tanks.
Nowadays you can use chipping medium, but the principle stays the same. Applying the medium on top of the underpainted color will create a film that reactivates when it's getting wet, and any layer of paint that you apply on top of that will just flake off if you apply force. So I just hit the pauldrons, some panels on the jump pack, the left leg and the weapon casing.
And this is again, competition level painter trying to speed up his painting. Oh, I'll just get out my airbrush. What, that thing that you have to separately clean, prime, make sure the air compressor's working and ready, and then fill the little cup on top with the exact amount of yellow paint. You could have just painted the yellow with a brush. You wouldn't have to mask off areas if you were just doing it with a brush. And this is what drives me so nuts when people that don't collect Iron Warriors start trying to paint that. And I've painted a lot of Iron Warriors, right? I've got an army at this point. It's been a while since I did an update, but I've got a force, right? There are a lot of very early on beginner mistakes you learn not to do, and it's two issues. On the one hand, he should just be brush painting this. You do not need to be using an airbrush at this point. This is either an airbrush model or it's not. And changing tools mid-paint job, that's going to cost you time, isn't it? But then the second issue here is, I'm just going to spray yellow straight on. Any Imperial Fist player will tell you that's the wrong way to do it. Any Iron Warrior player will tell you that's the wrong way to do it. You can work your way up from browns, burnt umber colours, all the way up through the dark yellows, up to a bright yellow, or you can just paint it white and then give it a wash of Imperial Fist. As much as I hate the Imperial Fist, even I'll admit they know what they're doing when it comes to their yellows, right? So yeah, just two massive mistakes right here. Going for an airbrush, going for just plain yellow, just spray that on.
Areas. As a fun little experiment, I applied the paint by brush on some of these parts. Yellow on the jump pack and black on the chain sword and one of the shoulder guards. While the black was fine, mainly because it went on in
2 thin coats.
The yellow was a real pain. You know, yellow, that's the paint everybody hates. No coverage at all, not even after 4 coats, and even if you look closely at the panel I airbrushed, that also took a few layers, while the black covered almost instantly.
Because all colours in paint are not equal. They do not all go on the model the same way. And you know this, Trovarion, you know this. You are a Golden Daemon competition winner and you are struggling to paint yellow. Come on, man, what are you doing? Come on, you're better than this.
And I think that's the key here. Thin layers of paint makes this effect work. Just watch how I put some water on the paint.
And then this comes into the fundamental issue with this video where, let's say, each time a YouTuber does a video like this, this is the test model that they're then going to replicate the techniques on for the next 20 models that they paint. Because they're doing a squad, they're doing a unit. I know some YouTubers just paint individual models and that's it, and they're never connected. But, you know, I'm going to go out on a limb and guess Trovarion's actually doing this as part of a full squad of Iron Warrior Assault Marines, right? It gets me, like, choosing techniques because you want your work with the metal to show through. Okay, that's fine. But then you like using techniques that just aren't, they're just not working. They're just not working the way you want them to work. They're just, well,
paint layers of sword and the shoulder guard, and with only a bit of scrubbing with the swab, it came off instantly. This means I had a lot of control since
I've never liked this look.
The results. On the yellow, however, I had...
Oh, it looks like when you strip paint off a model because you're trying to strip it down to the base plastic. That looks terrible. It looks terrible. It doesn't look like a deliberate chipping effect from combat. It just looks like you've dunked it in paint stripper and it's not quite come off properly.
To really start scraping and even switch to metal tools so I would make a dent. But on the parts I painted by brush, not even that was working properly. Everything just felt gunked up and covered in too many layers of paint.
And therein lies the problem, doesn't it? Let's just think about what this plastic has had put on top of it so far. A black base coat, silver, 2 washes that were sort of mixed together, so we'll say 1 wash, another layer of silver that was a highlight sort of sponged on detail layer, then about 500 million layers of yellow, and just before that it had the chipping medium. So that paint, like any detail in the little rivets, is just going to be gone, right? Let alone the fact that this technique like doesn't even create results that like it reveals none of the hard work with the metal, and it doesn't even look good. Like this is what drives me nuts. Just sponge on the battle damage. Just use a tiny brush and paint on the little chips. You know how to do this, Trovarion.
And then ultimately, the inevitable happened. I had to press so hard, the whole layer of paint came off of the surface. And I guess that can be a cool situational effect, but here it was not the desired result. On the bright side, this also meant I could get rid of the layer as a whole without any damage.
Like, if your model, if the paint is peeling to this extent, you know you messed up. You know you messed up. And you know that paint on chipping effect rubbish from AK Interactive, you know that wasn't the right way to do this. You messed up.
Damage to the metallic layer below, but man, what a waste of time. So I knew I had to switch strategy here, and I went for what I knew worked in the past. And so I painted the panels on the jump pack black, and the yellow parts I sprayed white first before I covered them in a thin layer of Imperial Fist contrast paint, just like I did for my Grimdark Imperial Fist space.
Okay, now this is the thing, on that chipping medium rubbish that you were obsessed with, why couldn't you do this with that? Why was this not your first go-to effect?
Space Marine. This turned out to be really cool in multiple ways because it allowed me to create more than just one great effect. The paint flaked off properly when I used the wet cotton swab, and I also could just use my needle to create finer scratches without much effort.
Like sometimes I wonder if it's just a case of I know what's best because I've been doing this hobby the longest, right? I'm going to just layer up layer after layer after layer of bright yellow paint rather than just doing white and then yellow over the top, with a medium that requires me to have a thin layer of paint. Like, come on, Trovarion.
Sponge chipping. Needless to say, my spirit was high. This finally started to look on par with the complexity of the metallics. But then I realized one thing. Funny enough, I never painted hazard stripes on anything.
Okay, so he's doing it correct. He is using masking tape. He's using actual painter's masking tape that's made to the very thin. I think it's like 2 or 3 mil in thickness. Like, it's very thin on the width scale to actually make these hazard stripes. And this is the correct way to do it. You use tape. You tape off the areas. You can bend the tape to actually go around the curved surfaces, because this is something he struggled.
That wasn't a straight surface, and I'll admit it almost drove me nuts. I cut down masking tape to an appropriate thickness and applied the strips one by one. But on a cylindrical shape, once it wraps around the whole circumference, good luck making that work, unless you're doing a spiral. I thought it was going to be easier on the shoulder, but nope. The stripes just ended up changing thickness with the curvature of the shape. And someone that isn't as crazy in the head as me might not have a problem with that, but it drove me mad.
Yeah, you do a bit, then stop, then do a bit more. You can do it one stripe at a time if that makes it easier for you. I've done enough hazard stripes now where at some point I've got to sit down and just do a tutorial, because it is not that hard. I appreciate he's a competition level painter and he's struggling like hell to do this, but it is not hard to do with tape. And you don't even need special tape. You can just get regular masking tape from the store and just cut it into thin strips and do it yourself. But the reality is, you don't just have to mask off the entire area in one go, paint it all in one go, and then peel it all off. You can do a couple of stripes at a time. You know, you can curve, the masking tape doesn't matter, the model matters. You can curve the tape, you can bend and twist the tape, so long as you're masking that area. The guy was using putty a minute ago, and he can smush that however he likes, but he struggles to figure that the tape doesn't have to actually, like, the tape doesn't matter, the actual surface matters that you're painting onto, the paint matters.
You just can't get a straight strip of masking tape to bend around these curved and tapering shapes properly.
Yeah, you won't. You won't get a piece of masking tape to do that, because a piece of masking tape is a flat two-dimensional item that bends very nicely in 2 dimensions. It doesn't like it when you're trying to put it over something that's got double curvature, you know, on all axes. These things, shoulder pads are almost like spheres, right?
And I even thought about sculpting lines with black masking glue. And I might have spent an hour or 2 trying to make it work, and I might have failed horribly, but I still have some dignity left, and I'm going to spare you the visual evidence of this travesty. Ultimately, I don't remember how much time I spent on this, but my small brain just couldn't figure out the solution. I was almost going to give up at this point, but then I figured I could just have the stripes cover the front half of the cylinder, and it would work. But that still left me with the pauldron problem. Ultimately, I decided to go with something I saw in an Iron Warriors artwork a while.
And immediately back in with the airbrush. Why are you not doing this with a paintbrush? Why? What benefit is the airbrush giving you at this point, at this scale? Like, it's just maddening. Honestly, Trovarion, skill issue.
Ago, where some of the hazard stripes were painted on incompletely on most panels, so that's what I went for. Problem solved.
Oh, look how nice that is.
Accordingly, airbrushed on the black stripes and then scrubbed off the rest of the yellow layer.
Oh, I don't... Oh,
the unstable nature of contrast.
You go to all that effort to make these beautiful hazard stripes, then you're just like, oh, just rub that straight off, straight into the bin. Oh, I hate masking mediums so much. I hate it so much.
When confronted with its mortal enemy, water, allowed me to flake off some of the black hazard stripes for a cool effect with no effort. So that's what I did until I was happy with the amount of weathering, and then finally added a chapter symbol on the left pauldron. I went for a rather pale skin on the face, painting the final highlights with a slightly blue highlight color, so it would contrast against the mostly warm overall tone of the rest of the mini.
As expected of a competition level painter, amazing paint job on the face. Faces are one of the hardest things to paint categorically, so absolutely incredible work there, even down to the pupils on the eyes. brilliant, mind-boggling stuff. And this is the thing you're about to see with his OSL work. Trovarion is an incredibly skilled painter. Like, I can't say it enough. He is a Golden Daemon competition award-winning painter, right? This kind of job, this struggle that he has with the hazard marks and the yellow and the paint shipping rubbish, like, this is beneath him. Like, I don't get how he's struggling so much with this.
And I also had some fun with a small OSL effect on the chest panel of the armor. I knew I wanted to do the base in mostly reddish Martian dust tone. And then I dumped a bunch of Terra Herculano pigment on the base.
Oh, pigment powders. I have such mixed feelings about pigment powders. Just
making sure it stays mostly in the recesses, and finally also covered the feet in a bit of dust, just to make sure the mini looked part of the scene. As a final step, I cleaned off some of the pigment from the edges on the stone and the armor with isopropyl.
Yeah, and what about in the cracks in between the stones? Because all that's gone now. It just looks like a flat base layer of neon orange, doesn't it? Like, mate, come on.
Propyl alcohol.
I mean, this is what gets me when you look at a paint job like this. Like, he hasn't separated out the actual plate, the armor plates around the elbow, around the knees. It just looks like one big flat surface that just drops into another big flat surface that it's welded to. You want to get some black line work in there. You want to separate those panels out. And this is what happens when people get so obsessed about a technique they can't see the wood for the trees. And it's like,
making sure I don't touch them a lot, because if you go too crazy with this, you also rub off the paint eventually. And then I called this bad boy done.
And of course, the pretentious model reveal. Like, he's not done. All of his metals are the same tone of metal. All of them. There's no brass, there's no copper, there's no shiny metal, there's no old. It's all the same dull steel colour. He's got none of the delineation between the armour panels or the mechanisms of the chainsword or the bolt pistol or the jump pack. Like, all of the webbing around the joints on the legs, behind the knees, you know, in between the elbows and the armpits and the wrists, like that could all be picked out a different colour, and he hasn't done that, even if it's just painted black. Like, I appreciate how redundant it is for me as someone that's never won a painting competition, not like Trovarion has, to kind of sit on my high horse and be like, oh, you've done all these bits wrong. But they just jump out, like, this model isn't finished. It's really well done, don't get me wrong, like, there's a lot of really good things going on here, but it's not finished. Like, it's based, but...
So I have a lot of mixed feelings with this. The grimdark approach for the armor worked really well and it was super fast, but the momentum completely vanished when I hit the problem with the chipping medium in combination with yellow.
Like, one of the oldest tricks in the world is you could paint the belt, the metal belt that goes around the marine. You paint that brown and throw like some pouches on there or some grenades, and all of a sudden your eye has got like a different bit of colour and texture to rest on, rather than this endless sea of grey that we're just drowning in. There's so much gunmetal everywhere.
And at that point I could have just gone for the quick solution and some sponge chipping, but you know that this channel is about experimenting and taking any hardship as a sign.
And this shot from behind just perfectly encapsulates this, because look at that shot from behind. Other than tiny little bits of yellow, what is there that actually identifies this as an Iron Warrior? Like I said, this could just be an Iron Hands. This could just be an Iron Hand Space Marine without a shadow of a doubt. Like 100% it could be an Iron Hands Space Marine from the Heresy era. And it's like, my guy, you're really good and you're better than this, and I know you got tired painting the model. It's like, come on now.
From the God Emperor to try harder and make your vision work. Also, I'm a stubborn bastard. And again, as so many times before, I ended up learning a few new tricks, which is always fun. And it's great to see.
Like, the chest plate is so plain, and I know that was part of the idea. The thighs are so plain. He's got no equipment. He's got no webbing. He's got nothing on him. He's got one bionic hand. and a face, and that's what separates him out from his 20 assault marine friends. Like, come on, Trovarion.
Even after 20 years of painting, there's still things to discover and room to grow. Thanks a lot to my patrons and channel members. You are the people making these videos.
And then it goes into the obligatory thanks at the end of the video. In conclusion then, Trovarion, you do a lot of things really well, right? You know, the metals are effective. The yellow, once you change over to doing white with a yellow wash over the top, looks great. That looks really good. But honestly, you struggled so much trying to do this fast, while also changing tools constantly during the paint job, from sponging to makeup brushes to airbrushes to chipping medium to cotton swabs to... No, if you're speed painting, you don't want to be constantly changing tools. That's not how that works. You struggled so much with hazard stripes, and they are not that hard. They are not hard to do, and I will show you all how to do it at some point. You need to finish painting the model. You need to finish painting the details like the webbing, because it just breaks my heart. Good video, but come on. It's not a decimation, but it's like, come on. Alright, thank you all for watching, guys, and goodbye.
Minis. And I also love the Iron Warriors painting scheme. Such a great contrast, and how weird is this look on something like a Space Marine. And since a lot of...
I don't think it looks weird on a Space Marine at all. I think when you've got a colourful menagerie of very childish primary colour Marines, the Iron Warriors stand out as being the correct, sensible choice for a painting scheme. the clouds that you see from some of the Loyalist chapters.
I didn't want to just paint the model out of the box, so I did a little kit bashing to make it more interesting. I want
a bit of conversion work, sure, why not? But let's just skip forwards and see. And I know, like all YouTubers, he's got an ad in the middle of his, right at the start, with HelloFresh, which is nothing at all to do with painting models. So I don't know why, you know, YouTubers feel the need to have unrelated products in their videos other than money at the end of the day. It's like, does anyone watch The Professor over at Solarian Community College, and he'll do an advert for like a balding men cream to grow your hair back? Like, that has nothing to do with Magic the Gathering cards. Terrible. Absolutely terrible, shameless sellout plugs. What can I say? But let's actually start the video then.
Get free breakfast for life. 1 breakfast item per box while your subscription is active.